at stake if a mistake is made. We have someone from medical, we have a police officer or a former police officer, and we have corrections. And it's going to be great because we're going to talk about the high levels of stress that we deal with, but also everybody on the show today going through the experiences that they've gone through are also experts in giving out advice on what to do if you're dealing with stress and burnout, how to recognize the signs. I mean, that's the key too. I mean, do we even recognize the signs that we're going through it? So the key first would be recognition. And again, like corrections, working in the medical profession, working in police, it's a highly stressful job. It's about dealing with the unknown. I mean, that's key, dealing with the unknown, because at any moment something can happen. So you have anxiety as well. All right, guys, so real quick, the show is sponsored to you by two entities. I have American Military University. If you guys haven't had a chance, please check out American Military University. It's a great online school, very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. Again, if you're looking to get that degree and bring some experience into the classroom, I definitely would check out American Military University. We also have Guardian RFID, from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence. Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. I also have another sponsor that will be coming shortly. I lost one, but I got another one in the mix. So I'm working on that. I'll let you guys know shortly who that sponsor is. And then we also have my book linked to Inmate Manipulation Decoded in description. So we do have a featured guest on the show. So we're going to be relying on him a lot for our dialogue. And then we also have Randy Sutton as well. And we also have Connie Eileen. My featured guest is going to be William Young. He has a great book on the market, two great books. One is When Home Becomes a Housing Unit. What a great book when it comes to working in corrections. I mean, you see the title and you know exactly what that book means. And then you also have The Nothing That Never Happened. And again, that's really about anxiety. And we'll explain that title and why that title, again, is so powerful for someone that works, not just in corrections, but as a police officer and also even on the medical side. The nothing that never happened. It's like the anticipation of what could be and living with that all day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on Will first so he can introduce himself. Then I'll bring on Connie, and then I'll bring on Randy. So let's get Will on. What's up, Will?
How you doing, brother?
Hey, good to see you, Will. You're looking great.
I feel terrible, man. I just 2.5 years late to the party. I just came out of isolation. Had COVID the last week, so I'm a little nasally today. So I apologize for that. But yeah, I feel good. I'm back amongst the living, and here I am.
You know, obviously, if you guys get a chance, Will has a channel called Just Corrections. And guys, there's everything that we talk about doesn't always just apply to corrections, even though his channel is called Just Corrections. It's because people minimize what we do. But I promise you'll find value in his channel as well, even if you're from outside the profession. Hey, Will, you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Yeah, my name is William Young. I am a correctional officer going on my 18th calendar. I'm an author of two books, When Home Becomes a Housing Unit and The Nothing That Never Happens. Both books address how the correctional profession can negatively impact us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, outside out of uniform. You just talked about the outside world not recognizing what we do, but a lot of that comes from the inside world as well, which is kind of crazy. So, but I have a YouTube channel, Just Corrections. Funny story, the name came about. We were kind of joking before the show there with Randy. The name came about because I am Just Corrections. I was standing at a chain fast food restaurant in uniform to try to get my lunch, and the cashier was going to give me the law enforcement discount, but a lady broke her neck running from the back screaming, no, he's Just Corrections, he doesn't get the discount. And I said, well, okay, I didn't want your discount anyways, but that's a great name for a YouTube channel, so let's run with it. So I've made it my mission, my purpose now to shed light, bring awareness to the mental health crisis that we're dealing with in corrections, and then maybe share some tricks of the trades along the way.
Well, I love everything you're doing, Will. I mean, you found a way to also motivate management to get involved. There's a care about what you do that I think is what helps us get the message out there. So again, all jokes aside, thank you for what you do. And just real quick before I bring on Connie and Randy, I'm having trouble with my book being published. So but I finally got someone helping me out. But the other day, I'm trying to talk to someone. They publish law enforcement books. And,
Right.
I'm saying, hey, I think this will be a great book. It's about corrections. And then literally that's what she said. She goes, we only publish law enforcement books. Okay, this will be great then, because in Jersey we're law enforcement. So I appreciate that. You're trying to do the spin. She goes, no, we only publish law enforcement books. I was like, okay, then where are we going? You know what I mean? Right. So that I'm just corrections.
No, and it's terrible. But like I said, Anthony, what I've learned in my little journey here over the last few years, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, is that a lot of that disrespect that we get as officers, as a profession, a lot of that comes from the inside too. It's like I'm not surprised that this crazy lady that does the books doesn't understand that what we do is as dangerous, as taxing, as stressful as being on the street. There's people that I work with that don't even understand that, which blows my mind. And so yeah, until we can get us to recognize what we do, then we're never going to get anyone else to recognize it either. So that, I mean, it's just, I love little stories like that, because I mean, it reinforces what we're trying to do. It reinforces why we need to do the things that we're doing.
Yeah. And that's definitely going to be something we're going to explore in the show, because you're 100% correct. Our own morale.
Right.
Okay. We got Connie. There she is. So everybody's standing ovation. You're muted, Connie. Ha! And listen, Connie, you were well into a sentence when I caught it. You were well into a sentence. All I said was,
get out of here.
Yeah, but was that part of, did you want everybody to hear that? That's the question right now.
Oh, Lord.
No, did
Every show we got this going on.
I think you wanted people to hear it, and I caught you.
Oh, boy. Whatever. Hi, Alicia B.
That was so, Alicia, I'm sorry for that. What happened there?
Hi, Carol. And I got to say hi. Yeah, because you're starting trouble. So I know. Before I let you even go down this road, hi, Charles Taylor. I got to say what's up to my people that are like, hey, Connie's here.
Save the show.
Hi, Girl Friday. Oh, my God. Hi, everyone. My name is Connie Aline. I am the founder and president of the Civilian Corrections Academy. I'm also the podcast host of The Fly Behind the Wall and the author of The Cage Was Her Cocoon. Tonight, I mean, I think it's going to be a really great show as we talk about all the stuff that could be stressors in all of our lives, no matter what role you play, especially being first responder, being corrections. They're the ones who arrive. Anytime there's a code for medical, they arrive first. They're usually there. And we're the ones coming in after, and who knows what they see when they get in there first, right? But there's just, I mean, aside from codes, there's just tons of stressors I think we all kind of live with and carry. And it would be great for us to share how we sort of offload some of that so that we remain mentally, emotionally, and spiritually sound.
Hey, Connie, Big Whiskey. Where's Big Whiskey real quick? Big Whiskey said they were at a Juneteenth event and they gave your book to somebody.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Over here. I was at a Juneteenth event and I gave a young lady your book that's interested in corrections.
Awesomeness. Thank you, Big Whiskey. Cool.
All right. Now we love Connie. There you go. Now you have him. Jeez. Guys, my next guest we're going to have also on is Randy Sutton. He has made it his mission to advocate for, I'm going to say those in law enforcement, because not only does he advocate for police, but he pretty much advocates for anybody who puts their life on the line for a greater purpose. I mean, that's just who he is. He has a few books out on the market. He's leading the way when it comes to advocating for police officers and other law enforcement agencies who, have individuals who are dealing with mental health concerns, PTSD, and he's trying to give them a voice. Because sometimes, sad thing is, guys, and we'll get to that, sometimes we feel the agency forgets about you. And that's something that Randy is fighting every day to make sure that these heroes are not forgotten. And I think it's definitely a noble and humbling battle. Hey, Randy, it's good to see you, man.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me, you guys.
All right, Randy, got to have you introduce yourself, brother. So
sure.
If you don't mind.
So I am a retired police lieutenant from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. I did a total of 34 years, 10 in Princeton, New Jersey, where y'all's from, and 24 in the Las Vegas Metro PD. Written 4 books, so my 5th one is coming out in 2 months, called Rescuing 911, The Fight for America's Safety. I'm very excited about this book, talking about all the insanity towards law enforcement in the last few years and how we can take our cities and our streets back. I run a nationwide charitable organization called the Wounded Blue. We are the national assistance and support organization for injured and disabled law enforcement officers. And we've helped more than 10,000 law enforcement officers in the last 3.5 years. And many of those injuries you will not see because they are related to post-traumatic stress injury. And notice I don't say post-traumatic stress disorder. We need to start educating people that it is an injury and it can be healed. So that's what we do. And the mental health aspects of law enforcement, whether you are in the jail, in the prison, or in a patrol car, very similar to what takes place between all three. In fact, I don't know if you saw it, but breaking news just happened 2 hours ago, where a corrections officer was murdered in the line of duty in Perry County, Arkansas. Yeah, so just happened.
Right on intake. I got some intel on it. I don't know how true it is. Supposedly the officer was shot 10 times. I don't know how true that is, but that's what someone sent me. But I know the officer, it's sad to say, is no longer with us. But I believe the suspect was not taken out. But I heard 10 times, but don't quote me on that because, it just came out. So we don't want to jump on it until we know more details. Let me just get Will back. I don't know why he didn't. Hey, guys, real quick, I want to ask you one more question, Randy, before we start. You said there's a difference between disorder and injury.
Correct.
How does that, what's the need for the difference out of curiosity?
Well, we've been using the term post-traumatic stress disorder for years. Well, many of these men and women who are facing these challenges, it is a post-traumatic stress injury. We call it a disorder, and that adds a stigma to it. Disorder is a mental health disorder. A post-traumatic stress injury is a fixable injury. And before we consider something a disorder, we need to look at it long and hard. And a medical professional can say disorder. But when we are looking at the way an individual is suffering, that suffering may be an injury and fixable. And unfortunately, we are stigmatized by that term disorder.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, it's great that we actually start using the proper verbiage, because having said that, people don't realize sometimes how there's always going to be a play on words, and it's funny, you don't realize how valuable words are until you're in court, and people start really trying to find out what those definitions are to make a loophole. But then we have to evolve. Oh, that's what you say it is today? Okay, so now we learn. Now we're going to start to evolve and change that. I thought I could start with Will and work our way around the table real quick, but. Will, we know each other for many years now, and you've made it your mission to really get the voices out there, the people that you feel that aren't being heard, the people that are suffering through anxiety, PTSD. I just want to know, why is it that you're so passionate about helping those who are going through this?
It's because it's something that not everybody wants to talk about. It's something that our culture, our correctional culture, and the culture of law enforcement as a whole doesn't address. And in fact, we're trained to behave in the opposite manner. And when you are out there and you're the alpha, you are trained to stop things before they happen. You're trained to respond to these crazy incidents. You're thrust into this alien environment that we are forced to deal with, and then you're left out by yourself. You're not told that, hey, these things could bother you later on down the road. These things are going to mess with your head down the road. And so when they start to do it, you don't know how to react, and you start to feel like maybe something's wrong with you, or maybe something's wrong with everybody else. And it really starts to weigh on you when it's just something that if we talked about it, if we dealt with it right at the beginning, then we could teach officers how to battle through this. And I tell you what, Anthony, working side by side, I had my own struggle myself, and that's kind of what started the whole deal. Is I fell into a hole, man, and I couldn't find my way out, and so I started researching correctional officer burnout, correctional officer suicide, depression, PTSD, all these things that are out there about us, the divorce rate, the mortality rate. And I'm like, holy crap, this is a thing. And so then I looked at myself and how to kind of dig myself out of it. I looked at the faces of the men and women that I work with, that I serve with, and they were carrying the same weight. They were fighting the same fight that I was fighting, only nobody was talking about it. And so since I'm at a point in my career and in my life where I don't really care what people say or think, or if they think that I'm not mentally stable to handle the job, well, their opinion doesn't mean anything to me, man. It's not. I'm not going to hide this anymore. So I die at an early age. I mean, these people aren't going to take care of my kids when I'm gone. So I'm out there trying to be a voice for those that cannot find the words to say it themselves, don't know how to put it, or maybe aren't in a position where they feel like they can talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to break those doors down for them, because I am tired of watching the people that I serve with at home and all over the world fall to this thing. And right now, with the staffing crisis, with morale being the lowest it's ever been, nobody's doing anything about it. And officers are, in fact, I read a post the other day, Anthony, on these correctional forums. And this correctional officer who's been an officer for 3 years, and I don't know why correctional officers always feel the need to say, hey, look at me, I've been max security officer for 3 years. Nobody cares. She was, no, nobody cares. I mean, we're all tough guys, right? We're all tough girls. Yeah. Nobody gives a shit. You work a max. People say, I worked a max unit young. Yeah, that means they were inside for 23 and a half hours. And when they came out, they were in chains. I know the deal. I don't care. But they're cannibalizing each other. This post was about people that were calling off, banging out, or whatever they call it, calling in sick. And they were saying, the reason that I can't go home is because this person doesn't come to work. This person calls in sick. And they start to turn on each other. We're turning on each other, when in reality, the agency's down 80 people. The agency's down 120 people. That person can only sprint for so long before they're tired. That person can only miss so many family events before they're worried about their kids not recognizing them, or their wife starting to screw the neighbor. There's life things that we have to take care of. And so, but where we're at now is correctional officers are cannibalizing each other, because there's no other recourse. There's nobody else that we can hold accountable. So we start yelling, we start freaking out on the people that we serve with. But here's the reality, man. Here's what pisses me off, is that nobody ever checks on those people, right? How do we know that the person that called off again for the third day in a row isn't swinging from an extension cord in their garage? How do we know that? Nobody checks on them. Right? We don't say, hey, why were you gone today? We don't text them and say, are you all right, dude? We don't see how their marriage is, because nobody has the emotional energy to do that right now. Nobody, everybody's got their head down, they're fighting towards their days off, and that's it. But the problem is, when they divide us, when we start eating each other, then nothing ever has to change, because people will just leave, people will get divorced, people will die. And it's just people talk about recidivism all the time, right? All these reformers and everybody, recidivism. What about officer recidivism? What about at the rate we're losing people, the bottom is falling out, and nobody's doing anything about it. And then there's the main core people are still standing there saying, oh, I wish these people stick around, or why is Young called out again? What a jerk, I was gone all week. How many people texted me? 2 out of 400 people. 2 people said, hey, how you doing? Everybody else was probably like, oh, that asshole took a vacation again or something. I mean, that's where we're at right now. And so that's why I'm out there beating the drum, man, because you're not talking about, this is way more than going home on time. We're not talking about making sure that people leave at the end of the shift, because honestly, guys, that's not going to happen right now. So get over it. We're talking about saving the lives and the families of the officers that you work with. That's what this message is about. That's what my mission is about. The other things will work themselves out. But until that happens, I'm out there trying to lead the charge and letting people know, hey, shit has to change, and it has to change now. And that change has to start with us.
Hey, by the way, that was hold on, that was powerful, Will, because that's spot on. You know, that literally is our history, but now also we're kind of in survival mode with all the stuff that's happening in corrections. So we've
Right.
gone from being a family or a team to being just me oriented, you know, worried about me because I'm getting mandated again. And I don't want to get mandated again. Man, I know Will has COVID, but, you know, he's pushing another day. What the hell? And,
Right.
you know, hey, do you see the same concerns when dealing with police? I mean, do you see a change in that team mentality? Do you see support for the police officers that are going through it, Randy? What about from each other?
I would say that there's a breakdown there as well. There's so much. There's so many departments that are facing the same crisis that corrections are, in that we have lost so many cops due to retirement or resignations or you know, they're fed up. They just quit. And we can't hire the people quickly enough. So you're seeing, I mean, we just saw 1,500 cops in New York City within the last 6 months resign or retire. Same thing in you know, all over the country. So guys are having to work overtime all the time. There's not enough staffing. Seattle PD just issued a statement, much to the chagrin of the city mayor, that a memo was leaked that they're not even investigating adult sexual assaults anymore because they don't have the manpower. So, you know, what we're seeing is a degrading of the entire system of justice, and that includes COs as well as POs. So, yeah, I mean, and what's happening is those who are remaining are picking up the slack for everybody, and there is nothing. I wish I could say that I'm seeing something good on the horizon that will start alleviating this stress and this pressure. But there's nothing on the horizon. The anti law enforcement lobby is alive and strong, although, you know, we're seeing a little bit of pushback. But you're going to continue to see this strain being put on all of the working cops and COs because of this ridiculous lack of manpower. But who can blame anybody? Who's not leaving that's at retirement age right now, right?
Right.
And that's powerful enough. And the sad thing is, guys, is with all this happening from the outside, especially even, you know, what happens on the outside does affect us on the inside. The people that are sticking around and they're really defined by purpose, that are trying to do the right thing, it's hard for them to motivate anybody to want to stay. It puts also management in a bad position because, you know, we don't have control of what's happening. You know, we don't. We wish we could fix it all, but we don't. So the problem is, how do we now go back and try to keep our people motivated? And then sad thing is that when we can't control it, the people that are in a position to motivate become disenfranchised. It's like, I can't do anything about it. What's the sense? Hey, Connie, out of curiosity, do you think the same thing's also affecting the medical profession? You got COVID, you know, a bunch of things, even in the prisons.
Absolutely. I mean, so just imagine, so when you're in the prison and you're working the floor, you're a nurse, a medical, right? You don't get to leave your post until someone else comes in. And so when you have COVID and you have short, you know, staffing challenges and all other things that can come up through the course of a day, the reality is that people aren't necessarily looking to choose work over their families, right? I mean, on the medical side, like nurses, there's options out there available. Now, are they all better? Probably not. Like the stressors, I think, in the healthcare field weigh pretty heavy on them all. You know, the things that they're exposed to, the things that they're working on, and the expectation to do more with less, right? I think that was an expectation always, but I think that expectation, kind of the less is so much more, so much less, that, you know, the stress just continues to mount. And so people are rethinking, is this where I want to be? Is it worth it? Is this what I want to do? And some are opting out. And so that whole topic about retirement People are getting to the point where they can retire and they're leaving, you know, and I think particularly working behind the wall, you know, the threat or the I guess the way that your license as a professional is vulnerable is really significant, right? Because when you're doing more with less, you're put in a position where you're compromising yourself even more. Like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can with what I have, right? But then when you can no longer operate at that bare minimum, you know, and something goes awry, the next thing you know, you're the one under investigation and possibly at risk of losing your livelihood because your license could be taken away because you didn't do something that you know would be within the protocol, even though you didn't have access to the resource. So the risk to continue working in the space where more is do more with less, and less is sort of really down there, people simply don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, and you know what's unique about that, guys, is the fact that obviously that doesn't just affect first responders. That you need to really give them all the tools to be successful, because the tools bring them confidence. When they look around and they don't have the resources, one is they start to lose confidence in themselves because I don't have enough to solve the matter, and two, they also start to feel that people don't value them enough. Like as I said, I mean, corrections, it took forever us to get COVID masks, and sanitizer, because again, we're on the outside of things until we're put on Front Street, So having said that, I think also it becomes disenfranchising to know that you're not even thought of when there's resources available, and you're not even in the picture. I mean, speak on the corrections.
Can you just explain to the audience what put on Front Street is?
Oh, good point. So when I say put on Front Street, is sometimes when it comes to law enforcement jobs or even medical, whatever, people will put you out there for negative stuff. And it's a very unfair generalization. What they'll do is they'll take one story that may have like a negative aspect to it, and they'll generalize it out as a way to define the profession. And that's how they carry their agenda. And at the end of the day, you get one negative perspective. It should never outweigh the million good that happen every day, but you're not going to know about that because we don't control that side of the media. Technically, the only voice for the good that happens in this profession are the people right here, technically, to some extent, I mean, generalizing it, but yes, it's the ones that are coming from within, saying, hey, we had enough of this shit, and having said that, again, those lack of resources to know that you're an afterthought, but here you are risking your life to do something for the greater good, to the service of another. And once in a while you get a crumb. It's insulting. I mean, it really is insulting. And that adds to the stress, because in these tough times that we're going through, especially when you're losing people like crazy, especially when you don't have the resources, sometimes if you could just say, hey, we appreciate you, or thank you, that could carry a lot of weight. But now you don't give us the resources, you don't appreciate us, you don't say thanks. Well, what do you expect us to do? It's like, hey guys, if I'm not being valued in this profession, then I have to find something else, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be a place where I don't have any value. And that kind of brings us to the next topic. What I'll do is I'll go with Connie, Randy, and Will. We're going to kind of reverse the order. When it comes to the stress and burnout of being a first responder, I know Alicia could definitely relate to this as well, working on the medical side, or anybody from the correction side. I saw Rosie here, Robert Snavely. We deal with the unknown. And outside of the physical threat, I have another unknown that's not usually thought of, is that we never know if we're going to get to go home or not in a daily 8-hour job. We don't know at the end of the day, because we're so understaffed, is, am I going to have to stay for another shift, or am I going to be able to go home? And then your family wants you to make plans. And then you're like, well, sorry, honey, I want to go to my daughter's birthday, but I just got called, and this job, and how many times can you have that excuse? And your family not understanding, because they say, well, your commitment is to this family. Yeah, but the reason why I'm staying at work is also for the family, or else we don't have a job. And it's hard to balance both. It really is. And it becomes stressful, because at the end of the day is you don't know what to do. I can't leave the job But at the end of the day, I want to be there with my family. And, you know, that's just the unknown of, if I'm making plans with my family, am I going to be able to, you know, I want to go to my daughter's graduation. And then it gets to the point where, you know, your family starts to expect you not being there. And they don't understand the sacrifice you're making when you're young, when they're young. They just want to see you there. So here you are, you're not there for a fifth time. And then the scariest part is when they stop asking you. You know, maybe they still have that hope. But then there's the one day where, like, especially now with the officers and medical profession, what they're going through, understaffing on all levels, your family just stops asking. Connie, what's your thoughts on not being able to plan events and not being able to know when you're going to go home? How does that affect someone's mental health?
So it affects you in every possible way, right? Like, so being able to spend time with your family is one of the things that is probably a priority for many people. Now, I get it. There's some people who may not have a family that's waiting at home for them, right? But that doesn't mean that their time is any less valuable than the person who does have now the stress of the spouse who wants to know when you're going to be home and be present, right? When are you going to help carry the load of taking care of the household? And I feel it's the same thing when your kids are looking out for you. How come you're not at my basketball game? How come you didn't come to gymnastics? Like, those questions kind of nag at you, even though you know that you're making a sacrifice. That doesn't translate to your kid, right? Like, your kid just knows that you're not there. Maybe as you have older children, you know, it might not even matter as much because older kids are doing their own thing, right? But, you know, to have their parent present for something that they should be celebrating or something that should be a family event and you're not there certainly has the impact. Now, me being on the receiving end of my kids saying, well, I know you're not going to be there anyway, like, that hurts, right? Like, no matter how much, you know, I can rationalize that that's coming from a place of a kid who really wants me there. They may not have expressed it in a way that makes me feel good, but maybe that way that they expressed it is to let me know how disappointing it is for you to not be present again, right? And so I think it puts us in that space when we're now in the facility, we're trying to stay attentive and alert and all those things that we're required to be doing at work, when all you want to do now is be with your family or be home. And sometimes the stresses, and sometimes it just feels like, so this is what I came in for today, you know. And on top of that, you have the added stress of, you know, maybe your manager or your boss is stressed also. And so they're kind of pouring that into you, and they don't probably even realize that they are now transferring all of that stress. So you end up carrying the weight of not just the stress of the inmates who could be yelling or carrying on, or it could be that one request, Miss Aline, can you put me on the list? No, I can't put you on the list. Like, you know, and that may not be the way that you would normally respond to something or someone, but because there's these moving parts, there is the stress, there's the managing the disappointment, it's managing the anger, it's managing what you feel about yourself about the job, right? Because sometimes that's not even good. Because why am I dealing with this, right? Why haven't I made a decision to do something different, knowing that when I come in here, here's all the stuff that I'm forced to kind of deal with mentally, emotionally, physically. It plays out in our bodies. You know, for me, I used to come into the facility, especially when, like, I knew things were going on. My stomach would be in knots all day. I couldn't eat. Or I would be eating all day. Like, I'm sitting at the desk just eating because I'm anxious. I've got all this stuff going on with me, and I don't have someone else that I can talk to about it. So it's really just us having to truly put ourselves in a space where we're a priority. And self-care is one of those things that we can't ignore it. I don't think it's, oh, you have the luxury of a vacation. No, we need a vacation. We need the time off so that we could disconnect, so that we could refill our cups, so that we could at least have a fresh thought. Because sometimes all of this makes it so difficult for us to think clearly, to see clearly, to make the next decision. And for us, that could be life or death.
Wow. And you know, Randy, when you hear this, obviously it's great to kind of merge the police into the correction side, because we do have a lot of similarities, and to hear Leslie say, I appreciate all you do under so much stress and pressure. Thank you for your voice. I mean, just to hear appreciation, you know, I feel, Randy, maybe you could feed in on this too, is that, you know, we know we're making the sacrifice. We understand that, and it gets to us. Our family hates us for doing it, which adds to the feeling of that sacrifice, and why we're doing our job, we're regretting every moment of it. So we don't have our mindset where our feet are, you know, if that makes any sense. We're not in the moment because we're more concerned about our family upset about a situation that we cannot control. And then you partner that up with the people from the outside that don't realize what you do, don't realize the sacrifices, don't even give you the thank you. How does that compile onto the stress that we're already dealing with?
Well, there's so many stressors involved now. The time off factor is a big one. I mean, you're absolutely right in that if we don't get involved in self-care, we're going to self-destruct, because no one can take care of us. No one's going to take care of us better than ourselves. So we have to be very cognizant of our own emotional well-being and physical well-being. Now, there are a lot of ways to deal with stress. Some of the healthier ways that we advocate for, of course, are nutritional aspects. That is, eating correctly, exercising regularly. Both of those have profound effects on stress. What we find ourselves doing, of course, is just the opposite. We're eating too much. We're drinking too much. We're trying to deal with it in an unhealthy way. So that's a factor. Now, what I got to tell you, you know, policing is a little bit different in that there are so many negative connotations now when it comes down to being a police officer, because you're getting lambasted in the media. You're scared to death to do your job because somebody's going to take a 15-second video and you're going to be on trial for whatever actions take place. You're looking at administrations that are throwing their cops to the wolves because of political issues, and you add all that to a media that is complicit in the anti-law enforcement lobby. So there's direct threats to people that are on the street. Now, there are also direct threats to COs as well, because you guys are facing, everything you do is under surveillance, basically. You have a use of force, you're going to face the same scrutiny. And of course, we've seen, there's no video, there's no photo cameras, in the prisons and the jails as there are on the streets, but there is surveillance, and unfortunately, sometimes you see leaked video films from the jails that are really ugly looking. So you add all of the external stuff, then to the internal stuff, which is you can't get any time off. You're dealing with issues that are going to have a very negative effect on the emotional well-being of either the CO or the PO or the P. You guys, I tell you, quite honestly, I could never do your job. To thought of being locked in behind the wall, not a chance. So I view what you guys do in a different light, but very, very stressful stuff. Now, how do you deal with the stress?
Well, all right. So I want to have Will come in, but real quick, when you said you couldn't deal with what we deal with, I wanted to quickly say, well, working in a max facility, and I can't get that off now, Will, because working in a max facility, I can't brag about anything anymore, Will. So that was no. I want Will to kind of answer that too, because this is Will's expertise. But I do want to comment on one thing you said before we get to Will. Was I think what you said was perfect, the external and the internal. I was reading a book recently where it says that, you can't spend a lot of time trying to control the uncontrollable. All you can do is control the controllable. Now, with that said, the book references two things: attitude and effort, which I get. Maybe that's a great way to look at things. And you try to control your attitude and effort to most of the things that you face. But what I would like people to realize is I think that what would help us more in this profession, law enforcement, medical, the likes, is the fact that you need to help us create more things that are under our control. Because right now we have schedules that we can't control. I mean things that, are you wouldn't think of, yesterday, but now it's just compiling with COVID and all these other things. And when you want to tell staff, hey, you got to change that attitude and you got to make a better effort. It's like, yeah, but do you understand the world they're in where they're expecting a little something in return and they don't get it? I think we're at the point now where even when you go to tell staff, hey, change the attitude, have a positive outlook. It's like, guys, there are certain things I get you want to be positive, but that requires creating a spin on something that's negative. And for some people, they're like, hey, you want me to be positive? I'm not going to lie to myself. Maybe, we could try to be optimistic. Maybe there is something at the other end, but I can't see it. So, how do we, Will, right now, what we have going on in corrections and just how it is, how do we find a way to motivate people or keep people invested in situations that are really out of their control?
This profession right now is like working in the boiler room of the Titanic, and we all know how that ended up. And that's the problem. And so what we're getting as staff is, hold on, it's coming. Hold on, help's coming. Hold on, help. If you guys were just a little bit more positive, if you guys just took off a little less time, if you guys didn't call in sick so much, this place would be a better place. All of that's bullshit. None of the Connie talked about it earlier. Think about this. Think about the biggest concern. And Anthony, I was just joking about the maximum security thing. I know you're a tough guy, dude. Listen, I'm just saying correctional officers have to flex on everybody, and flexing on other correctional officers is stupid.
Remember, Will, I'm admin though, so I'm bragging about working.
Get out of here.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Love you guys.
No, here's the deal, guys. We cannot give anymore. We don't have anything left to give. If Connie said it, if your biggest concern working in a correctional facility is what time do I go home today, there's something wrong with that. Like, if my biggest concern, what I'm focused on is, am I only going to have to work half of a double shift, or do I got to work the whole double shift? And most of us, we are working voluntary overtime to try to control the mandatory overtime. And so agencies are saying, well, look, our mandatory overtime is not that bad. No, because 60% of your schedule is volunteers, because I'm trying to decide what days of the week that I'm going to give up. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to throw away. I'm going to give that to the county so I can go home Wednesday and maybe throw the ball around with my kid a little bit. Oh, but my kid's got to work, so never mind. Now I won't see him until Saturday. That is so ridiculous. And here's another thing. I want to take this moment just to point out something stupid that correctional officers say and why we're in the situation that we're in as far as morale. You talk about this kind of stuff. You get on a platform and you preach about this kind of stuff, and people say, well, that's the job you signed up for. You knew what you signed up for. And then those same people say, this job doesn't even affect me. Well, first of all, those two things are the most idiotic things I've ever heard in my life. Because number one, not only does this job affect every aspect of your life, from the minute you start thinking about working in this profession to years after you retire. Anthony, you have Russ on here. We got guys on here that are retired years ago. They still have nightmares about this job. If it doesn't change it, we train you to change your behavior. It does change. And not only does this job affect you, it affects your family. So how do you like that? Mister, this job doesn't affect me. When your kids can't see you when they want to, when they look out into that room of parents that are smiling, they got their phones up, taking pictures, and you're not there, who do you think that job's affecting? They don't care if you did CPR and saved some kid's life. They don't care if you rescued the world from an excess number of newspapers that some segregation inmate had in its cell. None of that matters. None of that matters. You cannot have a healthy household and be working in corrections right now. It's almost impossible. So for somebody to say that this job doesn't affect them is lunacy. For somebody to say that this is exactly what they thought they signed up for is lunacy as well. I knew that there was going to be look. I've looked at all the postings. I've gone back and looked at my posting. I've looked at other people's postings. None of them say that they say you may have to work some overtime. You may have to restrain a combative inmate. None of them say that when your son turns 17, that he's not even going to talk to you anymore, that you're no longer 18 years in your career going to be part of the daily decisions that your household makes because you're a ghost. And why are you a ghost? Because your agency has been understaffed for a decade. Because you have been subjected to mandatory overtime for a decade. And not only that, sorry, Anthony, I'm on my soapbox. Not only that, but the things that you're subjected to, the things that you see, say, hear on a daily basis, they change you. They change the way that you interact. You no longer want to go to that music recital with all them other parents who are happy and loving life because you just saw some guy slit his own throat. You no longer can be around large, loud groups of people anymore. You are so paranoid, hypervigilant, with situational awareness that you can't even enjoy the time that you have outside of your facility. Why is that? Because we train you to do that. Because cynicism is cloaked in something called officer safety. And you start to look, we teach you to look at the world differently to keep you alive. And then we throw you into this environment for hundreds of hours of overtime a year. On top of your regular shift, you don't have time to decompress. You don't have time to do your self-care that you're talking about. And you can eat right, you can exercise, you can do all those things. If you're only sleeping 3 hours a night, 4 hours a night, you better Google it. You better look it up because guess what? You're going to die anyways. You cannot burn the candle at both ends forever. And that's where we're at right now. And that's why this thing is so out of control. And some people in the comments, I'm kind of scrolling through reading some of them, but here's the deal. You can't make people work corrections. But here's the deal. People don't even know this job exists. And I'm going to say, here's the problem, Anthony. I've said this to you before. I had an officer explain this to me. He said this career now is like watching a relative die from a terminal disease. Like you have the good memories, you know, like what Uncle Joe was about, but now he's just dying and wasting away to nothing. And we're sticking around hoping that we can restore this career, this job to the globe. Because here's the thing, Anthony, and Randy knows this, Connie knows this, every day, a correctional officer, a police officer, support staff, medical staff, records, we're all doing amazing things. We're all doing an extraordinary job. We're all doing things that society wouldn't do for these people, right? So we're expelling our emotional energy. We're wasting the good parts of ourselves inside, and nobody ever sees them. And then when we get home for our 6 hours between shifts, 4 hours between shifts, we don't have anything left. We're so emotionally tapped out that we can't do anything but sit on the couch, and that's not living life. And I don't have answers. All I can say is you got to promote this thing. A lot of this job, a lot of the people that come to corrections come through another person. And what am I going to tell somebody right now? Hey, come to corrections. It's a great paycheck. You'll never ever see your family. You'll never, ever get to go home. But yeah, I mean, you'll make a shit ton of money. You have a really nice casket when you die. And that's where we're at right now. And so we have to figure out how to change that narrative a little bit. But we can't do it ourselves from our level. It's got to come from even higher.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of things that you said that's powerful. People were definitely amening you as you were speaking. The one thing I got doing this is that even your family sometimes they think everything you're doing is a choice. Like, you chose to stay the extra hours. You chose to be mandated. Chose mandation. I mean, oxymoron. I don't get it, But having said that, the problem is that makes it tougher for us on the inside. I mean, we have to work. We have to have a job. And, and then on top of all that, to not even get the thank yous while you and your family's being torn apart, Can
I say something? I don't want to interrupt you on your own show, but let me say something. Here's what people say all the time. Well, just quit then. Here's the problem, and maybe Randy can attest to this, and everybody else who works in this profession can attest to this. If you're a cop, if you're a correctional officer, if you're a firefighter, if you're in the military, you're called to serve. You're not doing it just for a paycheck. We don't take this abuse. We don't work these hours. We don't work with the clientele that we work with because we don't have nothing else to do, right? There is something inside of us. Like, listen, if I didn't feel like this was my calling, I would have left a long time ago, because no amount of money is worth it. What I have to go through, what I'm missing, what I'm sacrificing, no amount of money is worth it. And so when we're talking about how do you bring up the morale of your staff, you need to look at a person that says, this is not just a paycheck for me. I'm missing things in my life because I believe in the mission. So how do you do that? You go up and you say, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. Hey, thank you. Hey, I understand. Don't say I understand. I know that you're missing something again tonight. And I'm sorry. We're doing the best that we can. Not some blanket email that says, hey, we're really trying, blah, blah. Be visible. Go out, tell your staff, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because you know what? That may push them back from the ledge just a little bit. That may push them. And even if it's bullshit, I don't care, pretend. But show some appreciation for the service and the sacrifice that these guys and gals are doing on a day in and day in basis, and have some respect for the things that they're missing out on for a mission statement. Sorry, Anthony. That's it.
No, you're right. Can I mention? I just want to answer something real quick from me, myself, and I. Real quick, how do you maintain your sense of self? It really is self-awareness. I mean, you have to know everything about yourself when you enter this profession, because the changes are sort of subtle, and you have to catch it. And you also have to, and I like what Will said, and I think Randy and Connie could also touch on this, is having that North Star, having that purpose, because right now the external is what's ripping us apart. So now we have to look for inspiration, because motivation isn't there anymore. You know, I can't be motivated because look at the world right now. You know, I can't find motivation in a world that doesn't appreciate me. So now I have to look inwards and find out value with myself that does align with that vision. I mean, me and Connie have talked about this many times. My job as a manager or as a supervisor, even when I went out to the out west, what's that state? California. Come on, Connie. Come on. You know this happens. You always have my back. You know this happens. I get these brain gases, farts, brain farts. Yeah. So when I went out to California, I noticed that there were a lot of people that loved the profession for the right reasons. I mean, they really did. They had a purpose, and they really felt that they were doing something great. And when you look at them, the morale was low because they didn't feel that they were appreciated enough for people to understand that their purpose is to serve the greater good. So when you give them that reminder, and when you tell them that you are appreciated and thank you for what you're doing, it lifts them up, but it doesn't maintain it.
Right.
It lifts them up for that moment. And then you get that feeling and everything's going good, but then eventually it falls back again. And our problem is, guys, is that we keep kickstarting the engine and just keep kickstarting it. And then we wait for it to die out again. And then we try to go at it again. And it's like, hey, guys, they have no fuel. You know, at one point the engine can't run. You know, how many times we're going to try to kick this thing over? And to be honest with you, the feedback, like, I feel now all we can do, and I love what Will said, and I would love to get Randy's perspective and also Connie's perspective, because I think purposes could be different in the professions. But I think telling people that there is a greater good and reminding them of their significance, how important their work is, the task significance of it all, however routine. I don't care. Right now, all we have is the routine, you know, to let them see that there's value, that there's purpose in what they do. Then at least I think with purpose, it helps motivate them, or inspires them actually, to go through these times, you know, because at this point, if I'm not inspired, guys, like Will said, I'm leaving. Especially if, again, here's the scary thing too, guys, and I'm sure Randy and Connie can comment on this too, is that you're not even getting the support sometimes from your family because you're non-existent. So, you know, you really have to figure out where, and we'll get to that, where that balance is. But Randy, I mean, again, tough times, being purpose-driven. How hard is it for management right now to sell a purpose or a vision during these times?
Well, management has a responsibility, and that responsibility is to lead, not just manage. And we often see that there is a lack of leadership within a lot of agencies. And excuse me, my cat is losing.
I kind of figured it was your cat,
Here,
man.
Stop. Come on. She gets very angry when I try to stop her. So,
Well, be careful. Cats are dangerous.
but I want to talk about that. There are avenues to deal with these issues. There's that whoever you got the advice from. There's that which you control and that which you don't control is probably one of the most important statements that you'll ever hear. Because we have to, unfortunately, we let what we don't control affect our lives in the most negative ways, and you have to come to that understanding that, you know what you control in your life, that's where you concentrate. Don't give the power to your leadership who doesn't appreciate you. Don't give the power to the external voices that you hear, because it'll screw you up. Now you have to deal with. I mean, one of the things that you talked about that is absolutely essential is the fatigue factor. Fatigue is a killer. Fatigue is one of the least understood and least talked about issues in law enforcement, and yet it is taking the lives of lots of law enforcement because it affects every aspect of your life, your health, your emotional well-being. It's everywhere. So, but I can tell you one of the things that my organization is doing in order to combat some of these issues that we're talking about today is I have a National Law Enforcement Survival Summit. This is the second annual one. It's coming up in October 11th through the 14th. And this is critical stuff. We have corrections officers, we have POs, all levels of law enforcement. And I urge you to take a look at this because this is life-saving stuff. The National Law Enforcement Survival Summit is a 4-day event that touches on every aspect of surviving a law enforcement career, physically and tactically, emotionally, relationship-wise, dealing with administrations, leadership. It is all-encompassing. And last year we had it in Vegas. It was off the charts, the reviews that we got. So we're having it again in the Midwest this time in Indiana, October 11th through the 14th. I urge everybody that's in law enforcement to take a look at this because this is a life-changing training event. And so that I understand, these issues greatly. I mean, I see them every day. I deal with law enforcement suicide every single day, from both corrections and policing. We don't make it. The Wounded Blue doesn't make a distinction. You're a law enforcement. You're law enforcement. So we have to learn how to take care of ourselves and each other. So I urge anybody to take a look at thewoundedblue.org. Look under the events, and if you are looking for something that probably might be one of the greatest training opportunities you'll ever have, take a look at thewoundedblue.org. Look under events, and if you can make it, spend 4 days. It might be the best 4 days that you'll ever spend. But this is the way. If we don't start examining positive ways to influence our professions, and we don't take the tiger by the tail, so to speak, and we let them wag us, and we empower them to negatively affect our lives, and that's where that lack of control is demeaning to our souls and can radically affect our physical health and emotional well-being.
I love that. By the way, someone did say a joke. We talked about controlling the uncontrollables, and they talked about your cat. Obviously, you can't control it. Yeah, I thought that was well played by James. You know what's great is I really got into that book. We had the guy on our show the other day, Alan Stein. He worked with everybody from Kobe Bryant to Durant, most athletics. And he talked about, as we said, controlling the controllables, attitude and effort. And one of the things that he mentioned that I found to be microphone
Hey,
that I found.
Excuse me, Anthony, I have to do another media interview, so
That's
I'm
fine.
going to have to say goodbye to you guys. But thank you so much for having me on the show, and it was a pleasure. Good to interact with everybody.
Great to see you, Randy. I'll give you a call though.
Okay.
I take care, brother. So one thing they mentioned is, let me get, there he goes. One thing they mentioned, he talks about control the controllables, right? And he says most of the time when people make complaints, they complain about external things they have no control over, but they barely ever look inwards over the things that they do have control over. And he pointed out the two things, as I mentioned, attitude and effort. So now during these tough times, I would really love Connie and Will's perspective on this. I'll start with Connie and then go to Will. This really matters because it kind of brings balance to the dialogue. Is how much is it external, the problem itself and what we're dealing with, or how much could it be internal in regards to how we're reacting to the times that we're in? I mean, are we able to maybe have some control over how we see things in a positive light? And again, I'd like to go with Connie, but definitely I want to get Will's perspective. I'm curious. It's a tough one.
So I don't know that it's really tough, right? So when you've been going through something for such a long time, I think there's a point where you don't necessarily feel there's a control, or you don't have a sense of control, right? Like, I think you control the perspective, maybe year 1, year 2, you think it's going to get better. But, to Will's point, year 10 comes around and it's not gotten any better. It's not so much you've got this negative, this negative internal battle going on. Like, your reality is that it has been 10 years of what feels like use and abuse, right? And so perhaps leaving the job is not the answer when you've got 18 years in, right? Like, you've got 15 years in. I remember talking to an officer and he was like, listen, I've already got 10 in. I got 10 more to go. It's almost like there may be a point where we feel there's a point of no return, right? But I think, yes, when you're looking through those rose-colored lenses, right, you can say, oh, you've just got to change your perspective. You got to be able to see the good in things and all of the therapeutic talk, which I think is really great. But when you're living it, it is very hard to put yourself in a space where you are only going to try to see things from a positive light, when the reality is that some things are simply negative, right? And I think the solution is more so how do we deal with that? Like, what is my response to this negative thing in the environment, right? And can I control, like, what aspect of this thing can I control? And if it's none, there's got to be a point where you say, you know what, I don't have control over that thing. I have to be able to disconnect from that thing before before I internalize it, right? And it eats me up, because you may not be able to change it, right? Like, I think about when those directives come down that make no sense, that have the ripple effect in the system that bottlenecks everything. It's like, this is so stupid. Why are we doing it? And I can stress and brood and carry on, but that's only hurting me, right? If I'm able to step away from that and say, okay, well, that's what they want us to do, we're going to do it. Right. But I feel like that perspective also feeds into that, we can't do anything to change it. Right. And so I don't know how many people feel comfortable working from a space of we're defeated. Right. Like, you want to keep looking for a solution and you don't want to feel like this is defeated. Or that you're defeated in the way you are approaching this situation. So I think it's a hard one. I don't know that in this space you could really just say, I'm going to control what I can, but you're also going to have to swallow that pill that you don't have much that you can control.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because the thing here is, when he wrote the book, obviously he wrote the book in it's more about athletics, but there was stuff that could be applied to this profession. And I do agree with the attitude and effort, because sometimes it could take one negative thing and then we totally generalize a negative outlook. So I like what you said. I mean, maybe there's a moment where you could step back and ask yourself if what is really happening, is it truly something that, really is negative, or is it really my perspective on something that I'm making it now negative? We live in a world right now where it's all email driven. I can have an issue with somebody, and then all of a sudden they send me an email, and my bias is going to interpret that email with how I see that individual. So a manager that was mad that was an asshole to me yesterday, maybe they have a better day today, but I can't get out of the fact that he was an asshole to me yesterday. So even if they make a good intent to do something, I still see the asshole that was yesterday. It's messed up that he was an asshole, but at one point, one of us has to make the effort to kind of move forward, because in the end, to be honest with you, I want to look forward to going to work. And I want to answer Alicia's question before I go to Will. She said, when you're surrounded by people with little to no empathy, how are you supposed to be positive? The unique thing is, guys, in corrections, obviously you're going to be very much influenced by the people that are closest to you. So I do like to hang out with people that have the same mindset I do. But I'm also strong enough in knowing who I am. So people that are not as strong does not have a strong mindset as I do, I can disconnect myself from them. My biggest concern is when you don't know who you are, then you're easily influenced by people who, again, if you don't know who you are, then anybody can influence you. But I think if you go in and you know who you are, you can control who has influence over you. You can control who's allowed to have influence over you. So again, I think it's more about you knowing who you are. Hey, Will, what's your thoughts on what we've been discussing with Connie and Randy before you left?
I think it's good, but I think that it throwing something out there like that and then making it sound easy is incredibly dangerous. And Connie touched on that a little bit. I mean, people only see their perspective. And think about corrections coming in, what we teach people to do, right? We teach people to forecast every potential situation that could happen and then carry themselves in a manner that stops that prevents that minimizes that. And so essentially we teach people to control the uncontrollable, right? That's our job. The prison system, the jail day room, it's controlled chaos. Right. And at any given moment that can spiral out of control. So we're kind of under this false impression that we can control all these aspects because we control these grown men and women, their movements, their, what time they go to lockdown, all that stuff. Right. But what happens is when life starts spiraling out of control, because it's so much more complicated than working inside of a facility, then we're kind of like, well, what the heck's going on here? Because I'm really good at what I do. I can do this in here, but now I can't have a conversation with my wife anymore. So what's happening? So that internal, realization that, hey, I need to take a step back and you always talk about finding my North Star or saying, hey, that this situation is bad or out of my control. I mean, that takes a lot of discipline. So I think part of that is just for people to say, if you aren't in that space right now, then that's okay. And that's where I like to start and say, hey, corrections right now, the job, the things that we're going through are bad. That's it. It's the situation is not an ideal situation. And I think most of us understand that. And so if you can understand that, and like Connie said, it's a great idea. Start looking at the things on a daily basis inside that you can control. I had a conversation with a guy that is frazzled by the overtime. Like he says, look, I can't do it no more. What do I do? And I said, well, here's the deal. You have to decide what days you're going to give up and work those days. Like some facilities have a rule where you can only be mandated 2 or 3 days in a row, and then they got to give you a day off or something or whatever. Or the days that they can't touch you, those are the days that they can't touch you. So I told this guy, work the days, go into work knowing that you're going to be gone for 2 days. And then that third day, you know that you can go have a picnic with your wife and kid or whatever it is. You just have to shift your perspective and what the actual job looks like. So give up that control. You can't control what time you go home. It sucks. Nobody wants you to be happy about it. Nobody expects you to be happy about it. But start looking at those little things that you say, okay, I can't do anything about this. I'm still angry about it. It's not just, hey, I can't control this, so I'm good with it. That's not, I don't think what any of us are saying. I still get that email that Connie's talking about and saying, this is fucking stupid. But then I let it go. I delete it. If it doesn't require my response, I delete it and I go on, because I know from doing the job that on a day-to-day routine that's not going to affect my day-to-day routine. I still have to do the same things. That email is whatever. Like Anthony said, you get that email from the guy who's an asshole, whatever. You could still, oh, this dude's an asshole, and then move on with your life. Don't hang out in those dark spaces for so long. But I think that nobody's suggesting that you say, oh yeah, I can't control the overtime, so I'm fine. I'm good with it. But what they're saying is, sitting in an office or working an area with 3 or 4 other officers, and all you're doing is complaining. Look, we're all stuck. We all know that. We all know what the job is, man. None of us are leaving. We're all staying in this abusive relationship. So can we talk about something else? Can we talk about sports? Can we talk about what kind of boots you're wearing? Can we talk about anything else? Because hanging out in that space for very long, it doesn't help the problem. It's not like admins at home sleeping and they wake up and go, oh, I think an office full of officers are complaining about something. I better go fix it. That's not what happens. All it does is make that environment negative at that moment. So saying to try to shift your perspective a little bit, and nobody's saying you have to be okay with it. But if you're going to choose to stay in this profession right now, if you're going to muscle it out with the rest of us, then the expectations of what your day looks like, the expectations of how this plays out in your head and your household need to be a little bit different, I think.
You know what I really like, Will, the freedom to say it sucks. Right? Like,
It
because
sucks.
yeah, like, because
Yeah.
I think the whole having to muscle it out, right? Like, I think even that makes it hard to be like, you know what, this fucking sucks.
Right.
Right. And so just sometimes giving the okay, like it is okay to say this sucks. Right. Like, this is the space I'm in right now, and this sucks. But I also, when you say like not to stay in that dark place, like I think that really matters. Like, this sucks, but I'm not going to stay in this sucks for too long. Right. Like, I express the feeling, I'm gonna own it, whatever that is, but I'm also going to try to find some light in this space.
Well, and Connie, that's where people like your coworkers and the people that you work with have to step in and say, hey, you know what? Connie's been a little different than Connie usually is for 3 or 4 days. And I know that she's had to work a little bit more. Instead of saying, well, maybe Connie needs to get a different job, or maybe Connie just needs to suck it up. Maybe you go talk to her and say, hey, what's going on? Like, can we talk about it a little bit, right? So we always talk about safety and being safe and everything, but what about a spot where we can discuss the things that are bothering us? Like, I don't want to be at work today. Well, why don't you want to be at work? None of us want to be at work today. Yeah, but my son is swearing into the United States Navy, and I'm going to miss it. Oh man, that's bad. So can I talk about this for a little bit? Can you guys be there for me for a little bit? But the problem is that takes support from everybody around, right? So if Connie is having a problem and she comes to me and says, hey, Bill, I can we talk for a second? And I'm in such a bad place that I don't care. I just want to go home too. Then that creates that really negative environment. And so I guess when I say, muscle it out, I'm saying that Connie and me and Anthony and all these people that we work with, we're all fighting the same fight, and we all are carrying the weight of the place, but none of us can do it without the other person. And so when I see a coworker or a nurse or somebody who's delivering commissary struggling, it's up to me to say, hey man, are you okay? Hey, are you okay today? What's going on? I can tell today's different for you. And we don't do that a lot. And I think there are pockets of people that do that, but as a whole, as a culture, when people say, what's the solution right now? The solution is to say, this sucks right now. Like, this is in 18 years, this is as bad as I've seen morale. That's it. And you know what? I get these comments, Anthony, and these emails. These people are like, "Hey, I'm getting into corrections. I'm excited," and I'm like, "Great, and God bless you, because you are coming in right now in the middle of a war, and we need resources. We need troops. I mean, this is a great profession, but it's just really bad right now. But if we can all support each other while we're at work, while we're doing the job with whatever that need is, right? If it's handcuffing a super huge dude, or if it's sitting down in an office and letting me break down a little bit and cry because I want to go home. That's what it's going to take to weather this storm, because we'll come out of it. We have to, right? So something has got to give. Somebody has to do this job, right? So we have to get through it. But we cannot weather this storm individually. You have to have the support of your peers on the inside. You have to have the support of the people that you're serving with. You have to have the support of the people in your household, your family, your neighbors, all of that. And the only way that we can get that support is to say, hey, I'm in a bad place right now. This is really bad right now. I need somebody to talk to. I need to work through some shit. And instead of saying suck it up, or instead of trying to talk over them, oh yeah, I remember when I got divorced, it was really bad. Just listen. Just be there for them, because the men and women that work inside this profession, I don't care what you're doing inside the profession. I don't care if you're an engineer unplugging toilets all day. You're still in the crock pot. You're still in the pressure cooker. This is still an alien planet, and it's going to take every single one of us to survive this thing. And so we have to work together.
Yeah, and the other thing, real quick, and I want to get back to a few questions that Alicia asked, but I want to comment on what you guys are saying too. When it comes to get people to want to help, you have to realize something. The outcome goes beyond helping them be a better professional. The outcome is it's about them personally. That's the key. And that takes investment, and that also takes vulnerability from the person who needs help. I may stress about the job, and but it may not be so much the job, but just how I'm dealing with the job as a person. Now, to allow that level of vulnerability to someone who only knows me on that professional side, they may not be in a position to help me in what they may be able to put a Band-Aid on it. That's why family matters, because in the profession, the people may help you get through the day, but your family is going to help you get through the career. I mean, that's to me, because at the end of the day, you don't want to change from day 1 to day 25. So your family keeps you balanced each and every day, reminding you at the end of 8 hours or 16 hours, you're still Anthony. And then day 2, you're still Anthony. And then day 3, because there are those shifts. So I think if we go in and try to take the time to invest in the change on a personal level, I get your goal. Because when you said that scenario about the Navy, you're not looking to help that person survive the day so they can do the job. You're looking to help that person go through something that really is personal.
Oh yeah, I don't
that
listen.
They cannot get back. That was a great.
I don't care about the job. Like we are trained very well to do the job. We can get through anything inside. What we're missing is that I spend 60 hours a week with you. And I may need to talk, and I've heard you talk about your family keeping you grounded and stuff. But what happens when you can't see your family? What happens when you miss years and years of events and they don't even act like you're there anymore? I mean, some of us don't have that anymore because our family is tired of being disappointed. Our family is tired of moving and shifting. And what time is Bill going to be home? And when are we going to do this? And when can we have Christmas? And so they just stop involving me. And so what happens when your wife looks at you and you're not the same person you were 20 years ago? Because that happens to a lot of us. And so it takes a village, right? It takes everybody to help recenter people and to keep them on that. Sometimes it's just getting us through that day. But I'm not talking about, when I say survive a shift, I'm talking mentally, emotionally. Listen, anything that happens on shift, I know we're going to get through it because that's what we do. We're trained professionals. But I'm talking about getting through our career with this intact, and our heart, our household intact. That's the focus here,
Well, I want to compliment what you're saying, Will, because everything you're saying is also intentional effort. Yes, if your family on the outside looking in, look what you're doing. The person is not choosing to be, they choose to be with the family, but now you're making it harder. The sad thing is, though, is that you're also pushing that person away, again, and it's not a healthy push away because they don't want to be pushed away, but they're going to look at their eyes as I may be successful at the job, but why does my family see me as a failure? You know, and how do I balance that when I need the job to be successful for my family? And I know for young kids it's hard, but that's where the spouse or your loved one, if you have one available, can balance that. You know, they can be, when you're not there, they can be the reminder that you want to be there. You know, so the children never truly miss you and they never stop asking you to be there. And then eventually when they get older, I mean, there's a lot of kids that as they get older, you know, they'll understand the sacrifices that are made, but it's when they're young that they're not. And the sad thing is that when most people start this profession, they start young and they have young kids, and they're the ones that are going through the sacrifices of, you know, getting the bad days off, you know, because that's how it is. We all went through it. You know, but that and it also doesn't work well when you're young and you have a family that's young. I know a lot of correctional officers that literally go through the grind and then have the children a little bit later, because it's like, hey, Gans, let me get through these first 10 years first before I decide to start my family. And what a loving spouse they have, because that loving spouse will probably understand it, support it, and then they have family a little bit later. I didn't have my first kid till I was 35. I didn't have my second daughter till I was about 39 or 40, but I already had secured a good, reliable, you know, time frame. And then I got lucky within my daughter. Let's see, my daughter was born, Mia was born in 2012. In 2015, I made admin, and for the most part, has had a consistent schedule. I cannot lie; my work does affect my home life because I am on call. I'm assisting in the running of a giant facility. But having said that, I try to be my best to, even though I'm present and I'm getting the phone calls, I still also, you know, you also have to be actually, I know you're at the house and you look present, but you also have to be present. So, but the family has understood that level of balance. I think for the most part is got to be seen. Yes, don't get me wrong. If you can be active, you got to be active. But for the young kids, they want to see you. You know, they want to see you, and you have to be attentive. And I work with such a good team where if I'm at an event, I could say, hey, listen, I know I'm on call. Can you give me 2 hours real quick? My daughter's graduating. But that's my initiative, you know, and I've been lucky to be able to have that in the course of my career. I have to make that initiative. I have to tell the people at work. Now, some people are like, oh, don't worry. I got you. It's like, hold on. You have people here that are going to help you. You said your daughter was graduating today. Why not let me cover it? I'll cover the shift, whatever, for you. And then you go ahead and, you know, go spend time with your family. I want to address something that Alicia brought up that I wanted to clarify.
Can I just jump in for a second?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I think in an ideal space, we would all have supportive and understanding spouses, right? Who would take up the slack and who would help to sort of bridge that gap, right? Who would give the explanation to the kids or the reassurances to the kids. But I think we started out early on where, you know, Will was talking about like marriages ending and kids not wanting anything to do with them. And so it doesn't sound as though we have as much of that support necessarily in the home over long periods of time. And so when you have that, and we're talking about, you know, managing the stressors of the job and all of that, you know, I just want to remind people that you have to take the initiative to protect what's important to you, right? And so if you didn't say, for example, hey, you know, my daughter's graduation, right? Like no one would know you need that support for your daughter's graduation. And so we're kind of suffering in silence to an extent. And when we don't have to. So I just want to remind folks that you don't have to suffer in silence. And while, yes, we don't all have an ideal home situation that, you know, there's going to be this support and this encouragement and all the other stuff that we need, you know, we do have to just make the effort to sort of protect ourselves and do what we need to do.
I know Will may have to go. So Will, do you have any closing thoughts? Because me and Connie could wrap it up. I mean, do you have any closing thoughts? I know you may have to go to work, correct? Speaking of the...
No, I don't have to go to work. I got pizza downstairs. I'm waiting. I mean,
oh,
you know, I didn't know how long you were going to let the show go. I'm starving to death, dude.
Yeah, bring the pizza up. You know, let's all have some.
Oh, get out of here.
No, so I wanted to answer something that Alicia had mentioned prior. So when we talk about influence, you're right. You can work in a negative environment because you're surrounded by inmates. Now, having said that, you got to realize something. Influence allows a level of vulnerability which places the person above you. When I deal with an inmate, I am always the one in the higher position. So I don't allow the inmates to have influence over me. It's going to be me to have influence over them. So I just want to make people aware that, yes, we are in a negative environment, but you have to realize something. We have a level of authority over those inmates. So, I mean, we cannot allow that inmate to influence up. And again, that was a great question. So it was good that we were able to clarify that. So I want to mention something real quick. I mean, we start wrapping up eventually. I just want to mention something. So during these tough times when we deal with what we cannot control, and we have to look inward, because that is the next step, guys. I mean, there's no other ifs and buts about it. This is intentional now. If we're going through these rough times, I'm going to have to put some intention into balancing things out. There is no option here. If not, then I'm going to wind up being miserable. And part of it is, yes, the job has input on that. I get that, but also how I react to these times, because we all could have bad moments or a series of bad moments. And then the sad thing is we let that carry over into the good moments, because for some reason we don't know when to let it go and truly enjoy the moment that we're in now. And I do believe there is some support from the outside. We always need that, an understanding of what it is that we do. Because the funny thing is, guys, is that in order for you to be the best for our family, we need the job. It's a crazy conflict, but it also complements. And having said that, I think the purpose is all we have right now. When you're dealing with all these pressures that are coming in, if you don't go back and let staff or let the people know that there is a service and they have to buy into it. The biggest concern I have right now is we have negative morale, right? I get it. But we also have people that are coming in with fresh eyes, and we need these people. Now, again, this is a different generation coming in. We can't expect them to come in right off the bat and understand everything that we're going through. I get it. But the last thing I want is for them to be partnered next to somebody who's disgruntled, who gives them that negative first impression. Because the biggest concern I have is that when you're entering the field of corrections, medical, whatever it is, police, and you don't have enough experiences to counter the negative, that's going to be a very overwhelming sense that is going to wind up being your foundation. And at that point there, you'll see someone that's going to like, hey, you know what? Corrections, I'm out. Police, I'm out. Because they haven't had a chance to really find something worth fighting for. Now, you have some of these people right now that are getting, researching topics and looking in. And when they're coming into the profession, they're coming in, even medical, whatever profession it is. There's so many resources out there that the people are coming in more informed. If they're coming in more informed, they know exactly what they're looking for. They know they want something. And especially with the stuff we're doing now, I mean, we paint a very realistic picture. Then when they come into this profession and they can't connect to that right away for some reason, and instead they find themselves going to a whole nother path, we start losing people that actually are coming in for the right incentive. I mean, it's hard to sell inspiration to be in this profession. I think that's what we do all the time. Me, you, Russ, whatever it is. We want people to be inspired, because that's the thing that really protects us and really keeps us on the right track and keeps us, inspired both internally and motivated externally with that North Star. Now, if you lose that, then the problem is the people that are coming in for the right reasons, I'm sorry, this isn't worth it. I'm not really getting the vibe. I wanted to come here to serve a greater good. And right now, by the way, guys, in corrections, that's all we could sell is a purpose. Because right now, anybody that's coming in this profession right now sure as hell ain't doing it for the money. Sure as hell ain't doing it for the atmosphere. So we want them to come in and find a place where they feel their skill and talent, their area of giftedness can be applied to something in the world. I mean, think about the civilians and the teachers, the educators, the social service providers, the religious providers. I mean, they're coming in wanting to make some impact in a world that needs it. So they're finding their purpose. But now when you connect them with someone that's disgruntled, who, is feel trapped and hopeless, the problem is that person that's just coming in is like, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to invest my time and I'm out. And at that point there, I kind of have a concern with the people that are training them. I mean, you have trainers that will literally come out and spill every concern that they've ever had in the course of their 20 years to rookies who just got in, who, you know, don't understand this and may have a reason for being in it. And then they get mad when, well, people are leaving this profession. Yeah, I get it, but that's not a good thing either. You know, saying all these things when you may have people in for the right reasons, and people like, well, are you sending them a false message? No, guys, because they're inspired on their own. Everybody has their own purpose. Everybody has what they feel is a piece of the puzzle that connects to something bigger and greater. It's not for us to deter them from that. You know, it's not for us when you have someone comes in, guys, I'm going to come in here, guys, and I'm going to change lives. Are you kidding me? You're working out of prison. What the fuck are you going to do? What lives are you going to change? And all of a sudden that person gets shot down. And now you have someone in it for the right reasons, leaving for the wrong reasons. But what's your thoughts? I'll go with Connie and then Will. What's your thoughts of that initial impression and how important it is, especially in these tougher times? And think about the people that are coming in during these tough times. They could be very resilient. So how important is that initial connection?
I mean, first impressions are lasting impressions. We know that, right? And so, you know, you come in and the first thing you're greeted with or you're facing is sort of that employee who's been there a long time, who knows the good and the bad, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, and probably may highlight more of the ugly because maybe they're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, you know, but while we don't want to have like that one employee or those employees who are going to have a negative impact on a new person, I mean, it's also important that new person comes in and they expose themselves to more than one person so that they're getting more perspectives, right? That, you know, they are kind of, I mean, I know it's different how we rotate through and where someone may start on a post, but you know, the reality is that there's more than one perspective in a facility at a job. You can't take one person's word for it being the full gamut of experience, right? And over time, yes, they'll learn. But I think the reality is that, you know, you come into this space and we know we need staff. It's not for us to inundate them with all of the negative things that are happening, right? Like they're going to figure that out soon enough because it happens more often than not, right? They're going to let them make the decision as to whether or not this is the place for them. You know, there's a reason why you've hung in here so long. So maybe there is some good in here and I just haven't had the experience of it yet. Hopefully they can be open-minded to that. But I think our reality is that it may be difficult to find people who are thinking everything's great in corrections and this is a great place to be, right? And I think that's just a reality for right now.
Yeah, I like what Will said before when Will said that, you know, for people like, well, what do you think you're getting into? I know that when you're going into this profession, you have to have some level of understanding of the environment that you're going in. So the people that are coming in, I don't think they're oblivious to the negative. I think they're, you know, some of them are making an effort to be intentional with the positive. I mean, for people that are coming in, seeing this as a career, I would like to think that there's something positive that they're connecting it to that goes beyond the money and all the other external incentives that really don't mean much when you're running to a code. You know, I mean, it's really something higher than that. So I do believe that there are some people that are guided by the right reasons. But having said that, you know, I like what you said, Connie, where, you know, you do have a guy here that's doing it for 25 years. Now, for me, my biggest concern, if I was new and I saw a guy that was disgruntled at the end of 25 years, I would just see a wasted life. You know, I don't want to be an asshole, but it's true. And at that point, that would be enough to motivate me out because I don't want to waste my life. I feel we have to have a purpose in something. And this person just spent 25 years and they're beaten and downtrodden. And the other concern is too, is again, you know, the people that are coming in, they're vulnerable, you know? So I think even for those that are coming in that may only see the negative right off the bat, I find it should also be our positive to be intentional and show them where the positive is. I think that is our duty to do that. I think our duty is like, hey, I get you're getting a lot of this, but having said that, I told you about this or this, because we have to try to keep them in. You know, we have to try to maintain that. And I've seen people that come in and automatically corrections as stepping stone. I'm against that. I disagree with that mindset. When I was in Cali, the sheriff even said he changed his whole video based on the speech I gave, because he literally said he was saying that in his video and then wondering why people weren't staying. Well, because she said that this profession was less than the other profession that were a stepping stone. So I think that what we need to do is when we want to maintain is we have to try to keep people positive and literally be optimistic more so, and saying, hey guys, listen, I know you're hearing this, but you know, you have these things that are being offered. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Will, when you're next to someone who's, or you're watching, you know, you got 16 years in and you're watching these new boots come in and they get partnered with a trainer who just literally throws all the negative and nothing positive to the new boots?
No, I mean, I agree with everything you say in principle, but to me, as in a position where I'm stuck, in a position where I'm tired, all I hear is, hey, it's something else veteran staff need to do differently to make the place a better place. It's up to veteran staff. And so I agree with everything you say. And I think it is very important for agencies to put the right people in place for training and for field training. And if you're going to be a part of that program, then you need to do it justice, and you need to do the best for the new people coming in, because we do need them. But I think it's important for people to understand that it's not just veterans that need to show the new people some grace and be understanding to them, but it's the new people coming in also that need to understand that carrying the weight of a facility for 20 years or 25 years is not a wasted life. If you're beat down at the end of a 25-year career in corrections, then I would say you did your job day in and day out. I mean, it's a long, arduous, very fulfilling journey. But I mean, it's a marathon, and marathon runners at the end of their marathon, they don't say, God, I feel great. They're like, my knees hurt. My feet are blistered. They're bleeding. This is the worst pain I've ever been in my life. But they do have that feeling that, hey, I accomplished something that's great. And that's what we have. So if you're coming in at the end of my race and I've got bloody and blistered feet and I'm bitching about it a little bit, then I apologize. But I just ran 26 miles, you know, and you're just starting the race. And so, listen, we got to be positive. We got to be intentional. I agree with all of that. What I'm saying is it's okay to say that this sucks right now, and that we need to refocus, and we need to work on some things. And it's not up to, and this is, nobody can agree with me or not, I don't care, but it's not up to veteran staff alone to carry the responsibility of the morale, of the staffing, of all of the department's problems by themselves. It's got to be everybody.
All right. So basically it's like an infinite game, right? This is 25 years of a journey of your life. You know, literally, this is 25 years. When you go to look back and say, what have I accomplished? I mean, all these things that we're dealing through now, I get it, but you have to ask yourself, did any of that prevent you from reaching your goals, from reaching what it is that you wanted? You know, and at the end of the day, it could have, or it couldn't have. I mean, that's up to the people that were intentional in trying to see something light at the end of the tunnel. But I think we're missing
it, Anthony. I think that people may listen to me and say, oh, that I don't like what I do, or that I don't accomplish things on a daily basis. I do some miraculous things in my work. Correctional officers do them every day. We give 100% of our effort at work all the time. We may bitch while we do it. We may complain while we do it, but we do it and we get it done. And we're doing it without staff. We're doing it without resources. We're doing it on 3 hours of sleep, and it's amazing. And so I wouldn't take off my badge for anything. I love what I do, but the reality is, you can love what you could do. You could be loyal to your facility, but everybody has their breaking point. And so my whole mission is to say, hey, if you're at that breaking point, then let's talk about it before you quit, or let's talk about it before you blow your brains out. And I think that that's a very important conversation to have.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, so again, even with CB with the recruitment, so the problem is you can't expect a rookie to understand that coming in.
Right.
You know, you can't expect a rookie to understand the trial and tribulations of 25 years. All they see is the outcome. They're not part of the journey. So having said that, the thing is, I'll be honest with you. If I came into the I was very intentional with my growth. I kind of had an idea. Actually, I was thinking the highest I go to as a lieutenant, and then now I'm, running a prison, with a good team. And it's like, you know what, you never know where the career is going to take you. I get it, but everything I did was intentional, which means that even if I was surrounded by something negative, I did what I could to find my path. And the funny thing is people will say, well, you know what? Well, Gangi, look, you're admin. The career was great to you. No, I made the career great for me. Everything I did was based on merit. I sacrificed things too. Every time you became ranked, you went right back to the bottom of the totem pole. But I made something out of this career. And then when you go to see people next to you, like you have people that are disgruntled and whatever that just look to complain. Then you have the other people on the other side that are happy. Instead of them asking why you're happy, they justify it by saying, well, you're an admin or you're a management, and you don't know what it is to go through it. It's like, I know I've been there, guys, but I kept my mind where I needed to be. I stayed focused, went through the tough times that it was, and I admitted vulnerability, and basically a lot of the stuff that helped me was I knew exactly who I was going in, and I knew exactly what I was going to be going out, and I got what I needed from this profession. The great thing about this profession is that, at first when I went in, I worked for this profession to get to where I need to be. Now I'm at the point where I'm letting the profession work for me. Because in the end of the day, 25 years, whatever it is, this is all just a small chapter in my life. It's part of the infinite game of where my value is going to be or what I'm going to give back, and for me to do what I do, it's based on the love for the profession. So having said that, if I could believe it's there, and trust me, my career has not been easy. I've had 20 million reasons to be negative. My career, I've dealt with everything from the good old boy system to being an IA for hours at a time, being interviewed, pre as well. Suicides like you wouldn't believe of people I knew, people I respected. 3 in 1 week. We've all been through something, but having said that, it's like I can let it get to me and be defeated, or I can take these moments and grow intentionally and now go ahead and try to be that beacon, because in the end of the day is I got to tell these people, yeah, you're right. Life is going to suck just like it does outside of this profession. Life is going to suck, but that doesn't give you an excuse to stop moving. And at the end of the day, if I'm in a class and I'm a rookie and I see somebody settled into that, it's like, well, wait a second. If they can't handle it after 25 years, what makes me think that I can handle it? So at that point here, I'm not going to invest in that. I'm just not going to see an investment in that, because in the end is I want to see success, especially for me as a rookie. I don't know the journey yet. I want to see a successful outcome at the end of this career, not something that is going to be the shadow of what it is that I want to be. But as I said, as you go through it and you go through the journey, the great thing is that you are intentional what you take and what you don't take. And for the people, I get it. The profession can get to people. I get it, and again, we should be there to protect each other, have the support. But in the end, you could also fight back. You could be intentional and say, hey, these are things I'm going to do, because it's funny, because we could have, we all could work in the same thing, be exposed to the same, threats, concerns, dangers. And there's certain people that have different thresholds. It's going to get to me more than it's going to get to you, or whatever it is. And those that have the higher thresholds, they help the ones that have the lower. But at the end, what we don't want to happen is for people just to give in and allow the profession. Because here's one thing. You can go in and passively be destroyed by a profession like this, or you could be intentional every day and fight every day to keep who you need to be. And that, to be honest with you, that intentional fight is up to you. That's you.
But some people don't even know they're fighting, though. That's my whole deal, and that's the message. Some people don't even know that they're fighting a fight, because we don't tell them about PTSD when they start. We don't tell them that, we teach them how to do CPR, but we don't teach them that what you just said is very, very powerful. It affects everybody differently. Right. So you have incredible resources. You've had this incredible, drive your entire career. But there's a lot of people that get kind of lost in the sea. And it's by no fault of their own. They don't know what's even happening to them for them to be able to pull themselves out of it. Look at people that are in abusive relationships. Everybody outside of it can see, and they say, all you got to do is leave them. All you got to do is leave them. That person inside doesn't even know what they're even talking about. And I think it's the same. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. My whole thing is that the fight that you're talking about, the intention, the perspective, all of that is almost counterintuitive, countercultural to what we give them when they come in. And then so they get 1 or 2 years into the profession, and maybe some things start, maybe they do. And the change is not, you don't just all of a sudden you're an asshole day 3, or a year into the profession you're like, I'm going to get divorced because I've shut my wife out completely. This is a very slow, subtle game, and the danger is, and it's starting to get that way. And Anthony, you've been out there talking about it. I've heard Connie talk about it. We're all talking about it. Is that if you're not prepared for a fight, whatever fight it is, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, you're going to lose. And our job, my job, is to let you know that you're in a fight, and that there are resources out there to help you. And so, yes, you can't stay in a negative space for a long period of time, because it will eventually eat you from the inside out. But if you don't know that you're in a negative space, then you don't know why you're feeling the way you do. And so that's the goal of shows like this, of segments like this, is to say, hey, look, this may be the things that are happening to you. And if you can follow some of the things that Anthony's done, if you can implement some of the things that Connie writes about, if you could do some of the things that I've talked about in some of my books, then you can make it to the 25-year mark, to the 30-year mark. You can promote up. You can find value and purpose in what it is that you do. But the danger is, Anthony, and what I try to highlight, you talked about that beacon, right? Some people are that lighthouse, but some people are in the boats that are crashing against the shores. And so our goal is to pull those people to the shore safely. And sometimes they can't see they can't see it from where they're at. And so that's what I try to do. I try to say, hey, look, I start where they're at. You're negative, you're pissed off. My question is, why are you negative and pissed off? What's happening? What's going on? Is it just the job? Is it something else? Is it something deeper? And then say, hey, by the way, have you heard of this thing called, mental health or PTSD or depression, anxiety? Have you heard of those things? Could this be something that is affecting you? And then start from there. And so I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. I just want officers out there, or people out there listening, again, this goes outside of corrections, right? This is if you're out there and you're in a state of depression or sadness that you can't shake, reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, and start to figure out a way to kind of unravel the influences in your life, the things that have got you to where you're at, that have helped contribute to the way that you feel right now. And then once you realize that you're in the fight, once you realize that you just got punched in the face, now it's time to fight back, right? And I think that's what we're both saying, just in a different way. But yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity, Anthony, always to come on the show, to talk, to bounce ideas off of you and your audience, and Connie and everybody else, because these are resources that we didn't have coming in. These are, if I would have heard a show like this back in 2005. I probably wouldn't have needed to write a couple of books about it. You know what I mean? If Tear Talk was around back then, if Connie was around to not invite either one of us on her podcast back then I wouldn't be where I am today. You know what I mean? And so I think the beauty of the platform, the beauty of the resources like Connie and Russ and everybody out there that's willing to be a light in the darkness, is that we're throwing in the ropes from all different angles. And all you got to do is grab onto one of them. And we're all going to be there to help pull you up. And to me, that's what it is. It's this brotherhood, this sisterhood, this common cause extends way beyond the walls and the wire of the world's correctional facilities. This is a international brotherhood. This is an international fraternity of brave men and women that need some help, and thank God that we are in a position to try to offer some of that.
Yeah, I think what's great, guys, if I could just give advice and compliment what William's saying, is that so you need two things: passion and discipline, right? I mean, passion is pretty much the why behind what we do, and discipline's the how. If when you're coming in this profession, you have to have some level of preparation every day, passionate about that preparation every day before you come into that wall, before you work this job, because you are going to be exposed to a lot of things. But the big thing here, guys, is that, and I have it in my book that's coming out, is that growth is intentional. We know that, right? Which means that coming into this profession, if you're working in corrections, you have to know every little bit about yourself. And more importantly, you have to know where no, it's all right. You have to know where you're headed. You know, if you don't know where you're headed, the problem is that you will get lost in this profession, because you won't know. If I don't know where my piece fits in the puzzle, I don't know if what's coming at my way is something I need or if I don't need. So again, you know, I had those moments where I was tested to see if I remained who I was. Moments where the profession would want me to do something, and then I find myself in conflict and doing something else. I think that one of the things about discipline and knowing who you are and building confidence in who you are, because if you don't know who you are, there's no confidence. I mean, again, if you don't know who you are, you're inconsistent with self. That means you can't trust yourself. You know, so if you can't trust yourself, there's no level of confidence in anything that you do. And one of the things I realized, that even as I'm talking about, like, day by day, I knew exactly where I needed to be. I knew that this is what I wanted from this profession. And each day I was passionate in chasing after that. Now, the problem is, if you don't know where it is that you want to be, or you don't know what you want to do, well, the problem is, without that purpose, the reason why I always quote purpose is you will get lost. And the other concern is, self-awareness is a very big part of confidence. And part of self-awareness is knowing where your vulnerabilities are. It's very key when you're self-aware to know where your vulnerabilities are. When you know where your vulnerabilities are, you will start to see the conflicts in what's happening to you, your behaviors, and stuff that just doesn't blend into who you want to be. I'm going to tell you something right now. Most people think that the academy changes you. It doesn't. It doesn't. It builds on the foundation that you already have. You're not going into corrections, you're going into law enforcement to be a different person. You're not. Hopefully you're strengthening the gifted qualities that bring you into that position, but you're not going in to change who you are. So the problem is, if you go into this profession without knowing who you are going to get tossed around like you wouldn't believe, because at the end of the day is, if you don't know where you are, then you have no way of understanding where it is that you need to go. And again, knowing who you are, I mean, literally, guys, it's passion and discipline every day, no matter how rough this profession gets. Passion and discipline, passion and discipline, passion and discipline, just straight through. And in the end, guys, when you have that direction, you stay through to it, you'll find in the course of your 25 years, you won't be that disgruntled individual, because every day you went in with a defined purpose and stuck through with it. And at that moment in your life, whatever that is, you achieve something. It's hard if I told people that, you know what, man, you want to get a goal, you want to get a purpose, I will never tell somebody to put that in the hands of the agency or to put that in the hands of your shitty manager, because then they're controlling your dreams. They're controlling your chances of becoming the best that you can be. What you need to do is you have to come in with that purpose already in, and it has to be something that you protect, that's internal. And at the end of the day, after 25 years, when you go to retire, you should be able to have that purpose because you've had it the whole time and say, I've done it. I did it, guys. I did my 25 years. I came out. I did what I was supposed to do. And at the end of the day, I lived these 25 years on my own terms. And how did I do that? I didn't passively sit by and let this profession beat the shit out of me. I fought every day. I was committed. And in the end, I got the end result of passion, discipline, and what happens when you stick through to a plan all the way to the end. I mean, there's a joke about golf. You know what? It's stupid, but you know, why did the golf player not finish the 18th hole? Because he didn't have enough balls to follow it all the way through. You know, I'm kind of bad joke, but technically here at the end of the 25 years, don't give up. You know, don't give up. The way you feel on day one, make it your effort to feel that way straight through, because in the end, if you truly love the idea of what you're coming in to do, because this is, you know what corrections is about now. I mean, you know what you're sort of getting into, and you're going to get hit with some crazy shit. I get it. But you know, this profession isn't about, you know, rainbows and sunshines. It's corrections. It's prison. But the best accomplishment that you could ever get from this profession comes from the end result of not letting the profession change you. And at the end, holding on to the things that matter, which are the things that you can control. And I promise you guys, they're little victories, but in the end, every little step is that marathon that Will's talking about. So I'll take every little step and then every small victory on the way. And at the end of the day, I will tell you something, guys. In reading this guy's book, Alan Stein, he got mad at himself. He was running a 26 or a 17K marathon. I think Alicia will be able to tell me how long the marathon was. And for the first time ever, during the 17 mile, he found himself with negative self-talk that literally wanted him not to continue moving forward. And he said, you know what, man, I can't do it. And he never had that negative self-talk. And then all of a sudden, he saw an old man on the 17th mile, about 80 years old in a blue suit, run right past him. And then a middle-aged woman who shit herself run right past him. And he's like, and which is normal in running when you push your body to the extremes. And what he said was, look at them. Look at what they're doing. Passion, discipline. And then what he says, it's on you. The talk that you put in your head. Do you have the I have to go to work mindset, or do you have to I get to go to work mindset? It's all about the questions that you ask yourself that could also keep you motivated. And at the end of the day, when the race is done, it's not about coming in first. It's about the fact of finishing it and getting ready to run again. I think that's a very important thing, especially to motivate people that are coming into this profession. Hey, Connie, what do you got? Sorry, but I was on my soapbox. And Will, I love your soapbox, by the way. So, yeah. But what do you got, Connie?
Listen, all I had to say is that working in this environment is tough, I think, on everyone. And I think we've all tried to find ways to cope with working in this environment. And some aren't always healthy, right? And, it is on us to advocate for what we need, right? And I think a lot of times we are waiting for someone to save us, right? We are waiting for the hero. And I feel like we are in a space where we've learned that there's no hero coming to save us, right? We're going to need to do what we have to do to maintain our health holistically, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, physical health, you name it. We have to save ourselves. And sometimes that means establishing certain boundaries. I mean, I saw CB had put up there about, the folks that are abusing workers' compensation claims and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we have those that are in there, right, who don't make it any easier for the rest of us who are just looking for a day off, who are just looking for a couple of hours to breathe, right? And so we end up being the ones who are calling out when we should be there, right? But it's because we are trying to preserve our lives. And I think we have to give each other some grace to know that if I called out today, I banged in, whatever that is, it's because I needed to do it, right? And so being able to be empathetic and understand where we are, I think as an industry, it allows us to be a little easier on each other and easier on ourselves. That, you know what, I don't want to do this to my brother or sister, but I need a moment today. Today is not a good day for me to be in the facility. Maybe today is not a day that if I was in the facility that I would be safe. I wouldn't be safe because I'm distracted, because I'm tired, because I'm frustrated, because, that lab result that came in has me stressed out. Whatever that thing is that has you not on your A game, we have to have a little grace and give ourselves the permission to not be okay and take the time we need to preserve the little bit of okay that we've still got in there.
Yeah, I want people to know, as we get to our closing thought, I want people to know, so me, Will, and Connie, Russ, we're very passionate about the profession, but we do have different perspectives. But that doesn't mean that we're not on the same page. For us in our world, disagreement doesn't mean divide. It means further growth and development. I mean, when me and Will did the one thing one time, Will won the crowd. He won the crowd because that was his crowd, and everything he says is spot on. Now it becomes my job now to try to get the crowd to look at me a little bit, and vice versa. But it's true. If I'm in a crowd and I'm winning the day, then it's Will's job now to step up and get his perspective. But that's where the motivation is, because at the end of the day, guys, this is an infinite game we're playing. There's no one right answer, because you're dealing with people, and
Right.
people don't have one answer solution. So again, when we voice our concerns, we voice our concerns. Sometimes I like to think from a generalized perspective, but most of the time, guys, it's from individualized perspectives and experiences, which can be very limiting at best. Hey, Will, wanted to ask you one question. You can go right into your closing thought. Somebody asked about survival guilt. I thought you'd be good to answer that, and then we can move on to closing. But what's your thoughts on getting survival guilt? Have you ever had survival guilt?
Yeah, I mean, every time you lose somebody, right? You think about, that could have been me, that should have been me. Could I have done something differently? I mean, anytime you're touched by, really anybody who's been touched by a suicide, that probably runs through their head the whole time. But again, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of conversations to say, hey, I did everything that I could. I said everything that I could. And the end result was going to be the end result, regardless of how I behaved. And so, if you're feeling that, then you need to reach out and talk to somebody, reach out to a professional, and talk to them, and have them help you work through that, because it's a very real thing. And it's okay to feel that way, but also just know that there are other factors in play than what your behavior was. So if I can roll right into my final thoughts, I've been watching the comments, and there's a gentleman on here that said PTSD is an excuse, and I have a real problem with that, and for several reasons. But I'm just gonna dive into this, and I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise, because I mean, you probably already have it figured out. But for me, it's this: I don't care if PTSD is real or isn't real, or if a person really has it or doesn't have it, if a person is really depressed or isn't depressed, if a person is really suicidal or isn't suicidal. Because what is the risk? What are you gambling? What are you saying that you're going to think that it's an excuse that this person is doing? Because saying that I have a cold is an excuse. Going to your profession, especially this profession, and saying, hey, I have depression. Hey, I'm on medication for PTSD. Hey, I'm seeing a therapist. That's not an excuse. That's career suicide. That's guys like you going to now look down on guys like me because I admitted that I had a problem, right? But what are we risking here? Is Young using PTSD as an excuse, or is Young really planning to take himself out the next time he calls in? What are you willing to risk, right? And so as a coworker, as a fellow officer, as a person who's going to run into the unknown and put yourself in physical danger to help whoever and whatever is going on, for the life of me, I can't understand why, when it comes to our mental health, we don't do the same thing. Right. So if I hit my body alarm and you're running down the hall, are you like, I bet this guy just needs to use the bathroom and this is an excuse just to go? No, you're not. So stop doing that other shit. Mental health is a real thing. Trauma does real things to real people. All you got to do is take 5 minutes and look it up on the internet. The suicide rate in corrections is through the roof. Double that of police officers. Double that of police officers. Okay? The rates of depression, of divorce, everything is off the chain. Is all of that made up? No, it's not made up. Right? It doesn't matter if you believe in the devil believes in you. Right? And the people that Anthony's been talking about, hey, you got to keep your North Star. Hey, you got to understand your purpose, right? The people that don't believe in these things are the people that are most susceptible to it. Because those are the people that are wandering around thinking that they're the cock of the walk, when in reality they're falling apart. Right? They think that because they separated their wife and their kid like combatants in a day room, that they're doing a good job. Right? They think that everybody else in the world is the problem and they're not the problem, because they don't believe in this thing called mental health. They don't believe in this thing called PTSD. They think that people that, I bet the same person that put this comment in there would say that somebody that died by suicide was weak, that took the easy way out. Well, I'm going to tell you what, send me an email, justcorrections@gmail.com, and let's talk. Let's talk for a little bit. I want to see where your head's at, and I'll point you in the direction of some resources and some people that have had a gun in their mouth, and you could talk to them about it being fake. But if you'd really like to just reach out and talk, we can talk about anything, guys. If you have any questions or comments, my channel is Just Corrections with William Young on YouTube, or you can reach me at justcorrections@gmail.com. And I have a couple of books on the market on Amazon. The Nothing That Never Happened, if I can show this, Anthony, here. And When Home Becomes a Housing Unit. Both are available on Amazon. Anthony, thank you so much for allowing me to come on your show again, to pull out my soapbox and to voice my passion for the profession and for the professionals that all of us are representing on this channel. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to say, Matt says it best. Everything that you say is gospel, guys. We get a chance, and Will, drop your channel link in the comments if you don't mind, because they're asking for it. And guys, you got to check out his books, because I think what's good about his books is you don't have to work in the profession to connect to the story or the experience that he's gone through. And guys, in corrections, 100%. If you're sitting there denying PTSD, guys, imagine having to work in an environment that you can't escape. You get assaulted on a unit, the next day you got to go back on. Imagine female officers who have been raped on a unit, and the inmate goes right back on their unit again because they're young and they can't get in trouble. You know, Rikers Island deals with that all the time, you know. So, I mean, to sit there and say that, you know, that doesn't exist, guys, you know, the type of environment with these triggers that you can't help but escape. I mean, a police officer, maybe they could get a new street beat, or they can go to another restaurant to eat. But you got these officers that are working these units that go right back into the same environment every day, and everything around them is a trigger, from the uniforms that the inmates wear to the smell. I mean, everything's just a reminder. And to sit there and say that we're not affected by PTSD, that really is an insult to the brave men and women that work behind the wall. I mean, that really is just an insult. I mean, that really just minimizes what we do and who we are and what we serve. So I appreciate Will standing up for that, as he always does. And okay, Will, so you did drop your link, and thanks, Will. Go have your pizza, and I'll have Connie do her closing thoughts. Save me a slice.
All right.
Oh, damn. That was fucking, holy shit. I didn't even get the fucking D and the Y. I just got the all right, but and gone for the pizza. He fucking didn't even complete the word. That wasn't even a marathon for him. That was a sprint. You're muted, Connie, so I'm just going to talk all day, because now that was
all right.
I
said he was hungry Connie. Since 9 o'clock.
Yeah, but you were a paragraph in there, Connie.
I wasn't. Leave me alone.
You were Connie.
All right. Stop
I did read your lips. I did read something. Was it either elephant juice or I love you? No, I didn't see that.
I said he was hungry since 9 o'clock.
Really?
And you first told us he needed to go, so you better leave me alone.
I could have swore it was like love and passion, but I understand why it's muted, because I'm married, Connie. I mean,
my God.
At this point, you know,
Get away.
You could tell me, you know, later, but
I don't know what I'm gonna do with you.
Connie, closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts. I kind of gave my closing thoughts, but I think it kind of still resonates with me. The thought that some people think that you can just kind of quit the job. Well, you know what you signed up for, is the thing that kind of sticks with me. And I feel like, you know, me as a civilian going in as a health services administrator, I am not expecting to walk the corridor and have piss and shit thrown at me, right? Like, that is not an expectation, right? When things happen to you behind the wall that would not happen in a traditional work environment, you are thrown, right? It adds a level of stress to you. You know, it's happened, you know, in facilities all the time, right? And in many facilities, there are no consequences for certain inmates' behaviors as they lash out at staff. You know, we kind of just gotta grin and bear it, right? And that's not a space anybody wants to be in. I think when we think about what we are kind of forced to endure, and then on top of that, we're almost expected to remain silent, right? Like you can't complain about something. It's almost like you don't have a right to complain about something if there's something that's troubling happening. People step up and sometimes they make sure they make enough noise that the issues get the attention that they need. But that can just be so exhausting, to be the person who has to step up, who has to fight the good fight, just all of that stuff. So I say all that to say that we step into these roles and we give our alls, we give our all most of the time with little to no recognition for that. And when we get recognized, it's for like things that it's usually not. When we get recognized in the public, it is for things that are not necessarily complimentary, right? We will see recognition for something crazy, like the White situation, right? Vicky and Casey White, right? Or whatever other crazy we see out there. So, just know that there's a lot of good work happening behind the wall. People are working through tremendous amounts of stress, and we're still doing our best to keep the public safe. So if you have an opportunity to let someone know that they are appreciated in this profession, I would just employ all of us to do that. And maybe we need to give each other high fives, right? And as simple as that sounds, but it's like, how do we acknowledge that we're in it together and we're gonna get through it together?
Yeah, I mean that's the key, guys. I mean, I think the moment we feel alone, but I would like to see a connection to the human element. I mean, at the end of the day, the outcome when you're helping somebody isn't just to help them get through their job during the day. It should be to help them get through whatever the concern is so they can deal with it. I mean, most of the time we're just motivated to help them get through their 8 to 16 hour shift. But I think we should connect more on the personal level, have that level of vulnerability, and go ahead and invest the time in each other to make sure we're okay. And for the family, I wish we could do more to, for the job to let the family understand what it is that we're going through. But in the meantime, I just wish the family could see that we don't, at that point, we want to be with the family, but we also have a greater commitment. And I know that, don't get me wrong, the greater commitment, some people may say, oh, it's the family. It is, but you need the job, guys. If you don't have the job, you can't support the family. And the problem is when your family makes you conflicted, the person who's making that money, male or female, is really put in a bind, and I think the hardest thing ever is for someone to be at work, being forced to be at work, because they don't want to be there, and then knowing that their family hates them for being there. It just adds more stress to the day. So that's when you hope that the counterpart is able to bring that balance and remind, your kids or whoever it is that expects to see you that, hey, I want you to know, daddy or mommy loves you, I mean, because again, there are people that work the hospital during COVID, people that work in corrections, police, I mean, there is that commitment. And when they get called, people in the army, the people overseas in the military, I mean, that when they're doing that service to the greater good in an effort, yes, to serve the public, but also to make sure that their home is taken care of because they're being taken care of financially. I think that's when the family also has to step up and fill in that gap, knowing that that person wants to be there. But having said that, can you remind them I exist? I know I can't be there for Christmas. Can you remind them I exist? I know I can't be there for the birthday. Can you remind them I exist? I think that's the key. I think the moment our family forgets about us is the moment it starts to go downhill. And I think that's fair to say, and again, by the way, guys, this is all intentional. You have to make the effort. So I think that's where the balance is. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. We'll probably have another live one coming up soon, working on a couple of things. I hope today was a good episode. I gained a few subscribers, which is good. YouTube was generous to me tonight, so I'm okay. I think at one point we were pro Inmate for a second, and I got a subscriber or two, and then the truth came out, and then I lost those two. But YouTube is Connie. YouTube is liberal, Connie. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, Connie. Let me ask you a question. You don't have to answer, but are you liberal?
Am I liberal?
Are you left or right?
I don't know what that is.
Politics.
Oh, I don't.
Oh, you're gonna answer? All right.
I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like, I would like to think that I err on the side of what's right for humanity, right? Like when things are right, like I go with what feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, I don't go with it, no matter which side is pushing the agenda. You know, it's just kind of where I stand on those things. So if I find that someone is more in alignment with my values, that's where I'm at.
And there could be no more definitive answer than that, Connie. And it's funny, guys. I'll tell you something. Politics will never give you an answer like that, but that's why Connie's on the show. You know, so I appreciate that. Of course, people are like, I miss Trump. You know, yeah. And okay, wait. Now we have to go. All right, guys. Love you guys. Stay safe.